Toussaint, and Matthew G. And your cosmic guide through this ever-changing space and time, your host, Raquel Herring.
Welcome back to another enlightening episode of the PlanetRoq Podcast, your go-to spot for all things relationships, personal growth, and navigating life's twists and turns. From the depths of dating, marital dynamics, to the heights of spiritual journeys, entrepreneurship, money, pets, plants, we explore every facet of human connection. I'm Raquel Herring, your cosmic companion on this wild ride called life. Each episode of PlanetRoq is packed with insights and inspiration to help you thrive in this ever-changing world. From heartwarming stories to candid conversations, we're here to empower you and uplift your spirits. Tune in every Thursday at noon on envision-radio.com for some real talk, real people goodness. Follow me on social media for updates and swing by my website at raquelherring.com to stay connected. So settle in as we rock your world one relationship at a time right here on PlanetRoq. Today, we have the honor of hosting an extraordinary individual whose journey is as inspiring as it is impactful. As a devoted mother, author, inspirational speaker, mentor, and encourager, Kerland Toussaint wears many hats, each one filled with compassion and purpose. Despite facing immense challenges, including overcoming childhood trauma and rejection, Kerland's unyielding spirit has propelled her forward on a path of healing and transformation. From returning to school after 15 years to earn her bachelor's degree in health administration, to founding the impactful What's Your Niche and Purpose Conference and Expo, Kerland's mission is clear: to empower others to break free from their past and step into their God-given purpose. Her memoir, From the Streets to the Pulpit, Walking in Purpose, is a testament to her resilience and serves as a guiding light for those navigating their journeys and self-discovery and healing. So let's extend a warm PlanetRoq Podcast welcome to Kerland Toussaint, a true survivor, overcomer, and source of all hope for us all. Kerland, your journey to earning a bachelor's degree in health administration is truly inspiring. Can you share with us what motivated you to get back to school after 15 years and pursue higher education?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, everyone. Thank you. That's a great question because I dropped out of school in the last grade I completed was the 8th grade. And the reason why that happened because I was a troubled teen. I was in and out of the juvenile detention center as a teenager, not knowing that I didn't complete that. I didn't even go to high school. I didn't even step a foot in high school because I was so busy in the streets, hanging around with my friends, getting in trouble, jumping in stolen cars. So when I was like, that was like my teen. So when I got in my 30s, I was like, let me go back to school. I didn't go to high school. Let me go back to school. So I got my GED and I enrolled in a community college. So that was the time that the professor was teaching us math because I forgot everything that I learned in middle school and elementary school. And he was like, you guys should have learned this in high school. And that's when it took me back, like high school. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even go to high school. I'm like, what was I doing that I didn't even go to high school?
Yeah.
And I remembered like, hey, I was so busy fighting, getting in trouble, going back and forth in juvenile detention. So it didn't even cross my mind. So I thought about it at community college when I was getting my AA degree. I was like, why I didn't even go? Because things were just happening, going with the flow. And I was like, wow. And that's when it came on to me that I didn't even go to high school.
Wow. And then you decided after 15 years, let's talk about the beginning. What got you, why were you not going to school? I know you said jumping in and out of cars. Like, what was happening in your life that you would just go to the 8th grade?
Okay, because people that don't know my story, I was mentally, physically, sexual, and abused when I was growing up. Every form of abuse. I even got stitching cord marks on my body. I was talked down on as a little girl at home. My mother was married to my stepfather, who wasn't my father, so he manipulated her to treat me different. While she talked down on me, so I hated being home. And he was like a warlock as well, like an evil man that just always did everything you can name to me. He didn't sexually abuse me, but he did everything else. The stitching cord, talked down on me. My mama treated my siblings different because that was their dad. So I hated being home. So result of that, it pushed me out to the streets of Little Haiti, Miami, where the urban area where a lot of Haitians resided, and that was during the time when the popular gang Zopon had just formed. Just formed in the 90s, like the mid 90s, 19, like around that time. So during that time, I was out hanging in the streets, like with my friends, that they opened up their house to me. So we was like always in juvenile fighting, shootouts. Like I mentioned, I had so many shootouts scenarios that I've been through that I even had a drill that I did. When it happened, I used to drop, roll, stop and roll and run onto something or whatever. And I even have testimonies that my friends got shot next to me, and I have a story about a guy was trying to shoot me in the head, and the gun got jammed. So all that time was just flying by, going away, and I didn't even realize that I didn't even get a chance to go to high school because I was like in the juvenile detention center, like I said, hanging out at their house. So I didn't go. My parents didn't try to check up on me to see did I win or not, because I was never home. So that's the story that led me not going to high school, and not because I was always getting kicked out for fighting because I was an angry teenage child.
Yeah.
17.
So you were just trying to survive the best way you knew how in this whole situation, this whole scenario of just home life not being good.
Just in the streets, surviving.
And then after 15 years, though, so you finished, you did your GED, you were getting your AA, and then you decided to go back and pursue your education. What made you just say, you know what, I'm going to go finish this. I'm going to do it?
Because I felt like I didn't go to middle school. I didn't go to high school. I wanted to complete something. And mind you, just imagine me with an 8th grade education. I didn't know how to fill out application. Wow. My grammar was just horrible. I never worked at a job, a 9 to 5. I didn't know how to fill out an application. I didn't know how to talk in interviews. So I realized, hey, if I want to learn certain stuff, let me go to school and they may teach me how to fill out an application. I probably can talk great to do the interview. I can do something because I still had that slang. You can still hear it because I'm Haitian American. It's like Haitian American mixed with the streets. So I realized, let me go back to school. It was a challenge though, because it's like I was learning. I was doing high school and college. Like my AA degree was like high school, everything crumbed up in one. I stayed in the math lab. And I was thinking, like, what should I do? At that time, I didn't know my purpose. I was like, you know what? I was struggling what major to pick. I was like, you know what? Everybody was asking, are you going to be a nurse? You're going to be a nurse? Because I guess during that time, nurses are very popular. Everybody would want to go back to school to be a nurse because it was high in demand. But I'm real sensitive, and I could pick up on other people's emotions. I don't like blood, and I don't want to be inside a hospital with sick people. So I said, you know what? I can work in the back end of hair care, and that's the business part. So I decided to get my degree in health administration because it's also high in demand, the non-clinical part.
Can you tell us more, like, what is it? Like, what is healthcare administration?
Okay.
What does that entail?
Healthcare administration is everything from when you check in, like I am a RCM manager, revenue cycle management. So when you check in, from when you're checking out, from the billing, from verifying insurance to claims, rejected claims, we bring in the money. So we bring in the money. We make sure the hospital and the doctors get paid. So I work in the finance department. We make sure the money comes in, that it get paid. We work with co-pays, co-insurance, everything. We make sure the doctors get paid and they get the reimbursement rate. We also work with federal and state guidelines. People don't think that we have to. It's just like a guideline that we have to go in, that we have to get the maximum reimbursement amount and rates.
Okay, nice. So now you have an annual event, the What's Your Niche and Purpose Conference and Expo. That sounds impactful.
It is.
Tell us more about your inspiration for starting this event and what are your goals and the attendees you can expect.
Okay, what's your niche and your purpose? I got inspired by that title because I felt like when I found my purpose, I felt like, wow, this is why I went through everything. This is why I was rejected from the womb. This is the reason why my mom wanted to abort me and she couldn't. I'm relatable. I found my purpose, and that was like the best thing ever, like the best feeling. I'm like, I know the reason why I exist.
Yeah.
And the two quotes that I put together when I did the event is the two most important days of your life is the day you were born and the day you find out why.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that was one of the quotes. And I have the What's Your Niche and Expo conference. It's not just for people that's in ministry. It's for people from ministry, marketplace, careers, every nonprofit. The first annual kind of blew my mind because I had close to 200 people there, 250 people there. And I was like, wow, people were so inspired, want to learn about their gifts, their talent. Second annual was like mind blowing, close to 300 people. It was like more than I expected. And I was like, wow, God, you're really blowing my mind. People came from all over just to come, their network. They had great fellowship, connections with other people. It's a great event. I'm having the next one next year, not this year, next year, because it's growing so much. I'm putting a team together so I can make sure the third annual will be very impactful and something people can leave with. And if they don't know what their purpose is, we'll help them to put it out and find it. It's in everybody's purpose inside of them.
Yeah.
When your hand is inside of you, just need to captivate it and pull it out.
Yeah.
You're done with it.
How do you what are the tools that you are giving people to help them to find their purpose?
Okay. One of the tools that we give them is like, hey, what are the things that you do naturally with no force? What are some of the things that you would do that you'll do it for free?
I'm
not saying that you're not going to get paid for it, but what are the things that you're willing to do that's not like challenging, that you don't have to put that much effort in, and people always come to you and ask you, hey, could you help me with this? Could you help me with that? It's something that you're good at. It's something that, because in these days, like social media has everybody wanting to mimic and copy someone else. Okay.
Right.
And this is the thing. You, Raquel, this is your niche and your purpose. You may be good at it. You may be natural at it. It may come to you naturally with no force. And people may gravitate to what you're doing because it's natural. That's your niche. That's your purpose. Some people may look at it and be like, hey, she's real good at that. Let me try to mimic and copy, because they do that. They'll steal everything that you have, your quotes, the way you start off the podcast, and they will take it and run with it like it's theirs, because they don't know their niche and their purpose. Because if they knew what their niche and purpose was, they would not mimic you. They would not mimic me. They'll not mimic anybody else. There's nothing wrong with being inspired by someone that's doing something, but trying to mimic and copy them the 100%, that's a sign that they don't know why they're here. They don't know their niche and they don't know their purpose. So we give them the tools, like I mentioned. We tell them the things like, hey, it's in you. It's something you're good at, something that's not forced. And, other people share their testimony, how they found their niche and their purpose, and they leave inspired. And I have people can be like, oh my gosh, you motivated me to get back to what I'm doing, because everything has season and timing. Something that maybe your niche and purpose may not take off at the beginning. Yeah. But eventually, if that's your niche and purpose, it's going to take off. Some people may, like my conference, it just took off at the beginning because I have anointed the people that gravitate to me, and it's just people want to come. But some people may take longer. It doesn't mean that that's not your purpose and your niche, but you may have to go through the process to get there.
That's good, because, a lot of times we are thinking, when we do something, I know I'll be thinking it hasn't happened yet, but I'm thinking I'd start something, it's going to go, baby. And then it don't go. And then you're like, but wait a second, it was supposed to go. But like you say, sometimes it takes longer. So it kind of brings me back to like God's timing. Yeah, you're in your purpose, but it's God's timing. Mm-hmm. And you keep moving forward into that point. Like a pastor was saying about that comes on Pastor Barrett's talk about be excited about the seed you're planting. The harvest is coming. Be excited about the seed. And that just brought me back to, what you just said. It's that timing. And I love what you're talking about. You're helping people like find what makes you unique, not to copy others, but
Absolutely.
what makes you unique, because you're you, and your uniqueness that's what that's what people want.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they don't understand, right? All of us have our own unique fingerprint.
Yeah.
Even if you're born with an identical twin, your twin does not have your fingerprint. We all are different in our own different ways.
Yeah.
So, and it's so good. That's why I love the conference, because that's why I bring different type of people. I don't just bring people in ministry. I bring all type. I bring people like I brought this lawyer. She came out the year before, and she spoke about how she had her she went to jail in college, and she wanted to be a lawyer. It kind of like pushed her to go to school for law. And when she got out and got her law degree, because she had a record, she wasn't able to get hired in a law firm. Now she has her own law firm. And she has a very inspirational story. So I bring people out in careers, business, different aspects of it to explain how they found their unique niche and purpose. And like I mentioned, it's inside of each and every one of us.
Yes, I love it. Your memoir, From the Streets to the Pulpit, Walking in Purpose, shares your remarkable journey of overcoming challenges and finding the purpose. What message of hope would you tell people, your readers in the memoir, to take away from the story?
My story, what I would tell them, what they can take away from is that it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you finish. And sometimes God can take a nobody and turn to somebody. I was that rejected child that was in the back end, that when I prayed and told God, Lord, why am I here? Why did I survive all those life and death situations? Why am I still alive? Could you tell me where I'm born? I did not know he was going to be telling me to speak it. I did not know he was going to tell me to impact people. So what I can tell you is that if God could turn me, this mess, into a message, he can do it for anybody. He's a refining God. He will use our pain into purpose. And that's what he did for me. And finding your purpose is like something you can wake up in the morning and look forward into doing, besides your career and business, whatever else that we're doing.
Yeah. That's awesome. As a mother, you're wearing a lot of hats: a mother, a speaker, inspirational speaker, a mentor. You're wearing all these hats. How do you balance the different roles and stay motivated to continue empowering others?
I have to get poured in, because you know the saying that you cannot pour out of an empty cup. Right. And I get inspired by getting in the word, worshiping, being around other like-minded, believing other people that sees what God sees in me. Because imagine you being a young girl that been talked down on, that said, hey, you're never going to be this, never going to be that. I was really verbally and abused growing up. So when God told me he was going to use me, I used to cry on my way to go speak at these speaking events. And it took me back to this little girl that used to be crying in a corner, hiding. I'm like, oh my gosh, God, you sure you're going to use me? I was doubting myself.
Yeah. Because
imagine the people that were supposed to love you and pour into you were telling you the opposite of what God told me as an adult. I was like, speaking? Helping others transform life, me? I thought those things that I've went through was embarrassing moments. I didn't think anybody would use those stories as a push, as a drive, as inspiration to be who you were called to be.
Yeah.
So it was a challenge when I first started getting out of my shell. I was really nervous, fearful, doubtful.
Yeah.
And I had to be around other people that saw it and be like, you know what? Because I needed that push. I needed that motivation. I needed that from other like-minded believers. And I needed God to pour into me and refine me as the woman I was created to be.
How did you work through that? Because, I know it's like dealing with that self-confidence. You're like, I have these stories that, why would I even want to share these stories with people? They're hurtful. But you're finding the confidence, even when you're being refined, to get up there and speak to people, to motivate them, to pour into them. Like, how did you get that? How did you get that self-confidence to just push through? What did you do?
I looked at it like this. I'm going to be who I needed when I was that little girl crying at home. I needed her. So when I went out, I was like, this is not for me. This is for them. It's a little girl or anyone, because even men are gravitating to me. It's somebody out there that needs to hear that story, that's going through what I went through as a little girl at home, that was crying, that's probably looking good, all makeup up, looking nice. And when she leaves here, she's going to go cry. These stories are not for me. These relatable stories, if they know, if God can pull me through this and pull me out of it, he can do it for them. So my story is not for me, it's for them. And my favorite scripture that I love using, what the enemy meant for evil, God gonna turn around for good. And we overcome him, the enemy, by the blood of the Lamb and our word of our testimony. My testimony is not for me. It's for somebody out there that needed what I needed when I was growing up.
Oh my gosh. So we have a mental health therapist extraordinaire, Matt, right? So he's here with us. And he's the resident guy that comes in and talks about mental health and mental wellness. And that's exactly like the same thing he says. Like, his experience of becoming this mental wellness advocate expert was because he wanted to be that person he needed 20 years ago. Matt is with us. Tell us, Matt, because I mean, that's incredible that you said that. That's what made me say Matt got to come in right now because yeah.
First of all, thank you for having me again, Raquel. This show's going to take off. You know, PlanetRoq is definitely going to take off. Another great guest, Kerland. Thank you for Thank you for coming and sharing. I was listening like, man, you're telling part of my story because I'm of Haitian descent too, raised in Miami around the time period where, you know, a lot of the influence of the street was there. My brother was the one who's influenced the most. And so hearing your story kind of aligns with a lot of what I grew up in. I grew up in the city of Opelika in Miami as well. You know, Opelika, if you're from South Florida, you know what we've seen. And so it's good that you took your pain and turned it into purpose. The same thing with me. A lot of what I needed back then, I had to become. People say you have to become the change you want to see. And so I'm happy to hear that you're becoming the change that was necessary for you. And you're giving a lot of people the opportunity based on you getting that clarity of going through that work and now providing that pathway so people can come after you and have an easier pathway towards success. Absolutely. So kudos to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. I can't imagine, like, when you said like a gun at your head, you know, and that, you know, the gun jammed.
It jammed. I mean,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That situation, I had to be, I think, 14 or 15 years old. My parents didn't see me probably for like 6 months in.
Wow.
And I was right now it's called Design District, but back then it was Wynwood. Mm-hmm. And my friend, his name Bizzle, he's now deceased. We called him Robert. He was a rapper. And we was on his block. All of us was like teenagers, nobody more than 20 years old, probably like from 13 to 19, 13 to 18. And we were just hanging out. And I hung out with some bad gangster girls. They still have goals in their mouth. We don't look like what we've been through, but however, we was out there hanging out and we used to wear Dickies. You know how like in California, the Bloods and Crips used to wear like the Snoop Dogg, used to wear the Dickies. So we had on Dickies. So this guy came over and he was like, these girls think they're hard. They think they're gangsters. And he started picking on us. But he was like, he had the wrong set of girls because we jumped on him. We jumped him on the street corner. Them guys was laughing at him, picking on him or whatever. And however, you know, God, you know, right now, I'm not who I was back then. So no judge zone, everyone, okay?
Right.
So me being a crazy hot one, because back then they used to call me crazy, I picked up a stick and I started hitting him in the head with a stick, So when he went back to his car, he's not going to go back to any of the other girls. He's going to remember me because I was hitting him with a stick. So he went to the car, got a gun, and came back to me and came straight to my head, went just like this one. And I was like, all of us were so shocked. I felt like I was shot, but I wasn't. I was like, because we were just so shocked. And I don't know if the gun was jammed. I don't know what happened. All I know, when he jumped back in the car and he went down the street, he just started shooting. I was like, whoa. Whoa, that was one of the shootouts. One of the other ones I remember was me and my best friend. I was pregnant with my firstborn son. We went to a house party. Again,
no judgment. No judgment.
Again, my cousin was in there, and I don't know, she just started a fight, and we just seen them guys jumping on her, right? So I went back to the car and got my homeboys, them that was in the car. Because sometimes not everybody want to go. Some guys will just be in the car smoking weed or, smoking their weed and stuff like that, marijuana and stuff. So I went back and I said, oh my gosh, they're jumping Bird, because her nickname was Big Bird. I'm like, they're jumping Big Bird, they jumped Big Bird. So they came out, and when we were walking, gunshot. I was with my best friend. She was right on the side of me. So we left, and where everybody's running. I'm like, oh my gosh, where's Jeanette? I say, oh my gosh, my best friend, I gotta go get her, because I was staying at her house anyways. I'm like, I gotta go get Jeanette. When I go back there, Jeanette is on the floor. Jeanette got shot 5 times.
Wow.
And this is the crazy situation. When she got to the hospital, she was like, because my nickname was KK. She was like, KK, how come you ain't get shot? They were shooting at both of us. And I had a hole in my shoe and a hole in my office. I felt like during them times, I really felt like God had a bulletproof vest around my whole body, or like some type of shield, because I have so many life and death situations. When I gave my life to Christ, I was like, that's the reason why he saved me all them times, for me to be doing this.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, praise God that I can now talk about it and, share it. Like me and my friend, we can laugh about it now because we survived some of the things that some people have not survived. I have so many people that I'm raised with that passed away, that's not here no more. And I think I went to more funerals than weddings and graduations in my entire life.
Wow. That's the grace of God. You answered the call. Like, that's like the great thing. You answered the call. You saw it and you answered the call. What was that like? Like that moment when you knew, I'm going to answer today. I'm answering. What was that leading up to that answering?
Oh my gosh. I was running for years.
Wow.
Every time someone asked me to speak, I was laughing. I was like, me, because you see my accent. Sometimes I'll mumble up. I'm like, I don't speak, because I would compare myself with other speakers that spoke great grammar. Their English was great. But God was like, hey, the people that you're going to reach, you're going to be able to reach to touch them, because they're going to hear your language and know your tone. Yeah. And I was like, I was running. Every time I want to go speak, I felt like I asked God, I said, God, you can change your mind anytime now. On my way going there, I was like, God, okay, because I was not even prepared, because I was like so shocked that God was using me. Wow. And when I got there and I got on the mic, I just floated. When I look at the video, I be like, God got a sense of humor. He used it. My place behind me. So I ran until I was like, you know what? I still struggle with it here and there until I catch the flow with it or whatever. But I just know, you know what? Like I mentioned, it's not for me, it's for someone else. And it doesn't matter who look at me like, oh my gosh, you know how it has a lot of religious church folks that act like they haven't been through nothing, Yeah. And I'm not changing my personality, even though I feel like I have to change who I am, who God called me to be, and act like I never gone through anything. Because in the Bible, Moses was a murderer. God used prostitutes. He used Paul the killer. So when I look at them, looking at and judging people, I'm like, okay, you must not be reading the same Bible I'm reading, because he ain't used nobody that's perfect.
No. Well, who was perfect? That's right.
Absolutely.
Nobody was perfect. He used all like imperfect people that was like, they was doing some messy stuff. And look at Abraham. He called Abraham the father of faith. And how many times was Abraham lying? And
a lot. I said a lot. Abraham was lying a lot.
Right. And had a baby with his handmaiden. So, praise God. That's amazing. I love that story, because you're just like, again, it just shows transformation. How God, when, you give yourself to him, that he transforms you, and he like does a total transformation. Like you say, I'm not that person anymore. That's awesome.
And I didn't come from a Christian background. I came from a witchcraft voodoo background. So could you imagine not introduced to God? Had to reveal himself to me himself. I didn't like wake up we didn't go to church.
Mm-hmm.
My father practiced witchcraft. He had an altar at the house. He used to be possessed by demons that to make him say stuff and do stuff. I didn't know what that was at that time until afterwards. So I wasn't brainwashed in no church to be like, hey, today that I'm gonna be a Christian woman. I wasn't brainwashed into being a Christian. Now, it's not something that I had to sit down. I was forced to go to church. I wasn't forced to go to church.
Right.
So I knew. So when I got saved, I was like, I didn't know if that was something, because if you raised up in something, you don't know if it's wrong.
Right.
Right.
You don't know if it's wrong. Like, I didn't think what they was doing was wrong. I just had a feeling, because I know I used to watch, I used to love the History Channel. And I remember watching Exodus. Okay. And it always was in my mind that those things are idols, even though I didn't know the Bible at all.
Yeah.
I remember I used to, and I wrote this in my book. I remember I used to go to church with my dad, like the Catholic church, but it wasn't a church. He used to go because some of them, they go there and they throw monies at the saints and they pray to them and they do stuff. And he was like, hey, go pray to it. I was like, no, that stuff looking at me. I'm not. And I couldn't get into it. I was like, it looked like it's looking at me. Like, I'm scared of it. Like, you sure? What is that? And there was a big old statue behind like this gate.
Yeah.
You could throw money at it or whatever. And that was downtown Miami, this big popular church that like witches and warlocks go there before they do their ceremonies. You could tell because they look like I'm telling you, it's interesting. And I was always this observing girl. And I'm like, okay, I'm not brainwashed. Yeah. I didn't know the Bible, not even one scripture until the Holy Spirit hit me. I didn't know for God so little word, because I used to pass it around everywhere. Everybody should.
John 3:16, I know exactly what you're talking about. Right. Yeah.
Because that's something people used to always pass around. That's the verse they have on everything. So I knew that one by heart. That was the only one.
Wow. Very interesting story. So I'm sorry, if you don't mind me asking a question, Raquel. This is such an interesting take, because it sounds like your family had their own spiritual grounding, and then you came into Christianity on your own, and it was so beneficial for you in the time period, leaving understanding you didn't have, to coming into Christianity. What was the most, I think, shocking and revealing part as far as the healing process that took place when you went into Christianity?
Good question.
If you come from a witchcraft background, okay, not to get too spiritual, not to scare anyone that's out there, but this is real. If you don't hear from me, when I transitioned from a Christian woman, from a voodoo background, mind you, it's things that people open up doors, they call them saints, but are actually fallen angels and demons. Mm-hmm. So somebody in my family, I don't know somebody had to make a contract with those things. Mm-hmm. When I first got saved, I was being tormented in my sleep every night until I got delivered, because I'm the first generational Christian. People don't know how deep it is when you go worship them things and whatever. You think they're protecting you. They're not protecting those demons that do not want to go back to the pits of hell. I was tormented. Like, one of my oldest son was going through a mental breakdown. That's why I'm helping you through that's your department, because I was reading up on it, because when I got saved and my mom passed away, whatever, because I started seeing things that my dad used to do on my oldest son. It was a generational curse that since I closed the door, he was the weakest link in my family, like out of my kids and stuff. So he was the one being attacked, because I closed that door. They couldn't come bother me no more. So since his door was open, he was like spiritual operating in him. And he was going through a spiritual battle. It was mentally and it was spiritually. I was being tormented at night. Like, my mind, them things did not want to leave me alone. They even threatened me. That's how deep it was. I had to get physically delivered. I had to go to a strong church that specialized in breaking generational curse of voodoo background and witchcraft background.
Wow.
You have to renounce it, denounce it. You just can't just say, hey, I'm saved today. It doesn't work like that. I had to go through it. That was the most challenging part. Because mind you as well, too, I didn't really talk about the traumatic part, that I had trigger points as well. Because I was traumatized as a young girl, I had to get healing from the physical part and the spiritual part. I had to go to therapy as well.
Right.
Because I had trigger points. When I was growing up, I had anger issue.
Yeah.
Bad anger issue. I used to fight. I used to get kicked out. I had an offense mode that I always thought she was going to come at me and criticize me because I was criticized so much when I was younger.
Yeah.
I never held nobody. I never had nobody uplift me, pour it into me, speak life to me. I always had the opposite. You understand? So imagine you going through that traumatic period all your life.
Yeah.
Not only that, I'm not trying to like make this story go different ways. I had so many different episodes in my life. Let me just give you a little background. Please. As a young girl, I'm traumatized at home, physically, mentally, verbally, sexually abused. Still got the switching core mark on my body. As a teenager, I was in the streets, gunshot wounds, seeing crackheads and drug addicts. Some of my friends died of drugs. Okay, so that's the teenagers. The 20s, I didn't even mention that part. Besides the witchcraft, I was a stripper. So I was in that life. The nightlife was hustlers, and the guys I dated was like hustlers and whatever. So it was a lot of things that I went through that, hey, now I'm saved, that I had trigger points in the club. I used to fight so much. I was this angry child. Wow. Like I didn't even know how to receive love. So I went through a lot. So I had to get healing from the physical part and the spiritual part. Therapy as controlling my trigger points. When I first got my first 9 to 5, I used to be shaking because I thought my trainer was going to criticize me that I'm doing everything wrong. It was some deep stuff.
Right. Yeah. I can hear it. I definitely can hear it. It sounds like you actually went through a number of, and you're talking about in different decades of your life, different periods of your life. You outlined 0 to 10, which was very traumatic for you. Then you outlined the teenage years. Then you outlined the 20s. You're talking about 3 decades of trauma. You know? There's a study that was done in 1994, 1995 by the CDC called the Adverse Childhood Experience Study. And they talked about trauma from another perspective. They only talked about trauma in this study from the inside of the home. So what was happening to you when you were younger inside the home is what they really mentioned in this study. They talked about verbal abuse, physical abuse. They talked about sexual abuse. They talked about neglect. They talked about parents separating in the home. They talked about a parent or an adult in the home having mental health issues, substance abuse issue in the home, and someone being separated, And so they talked about those issues, right, in this study. And then this study was designed to where they looked at what happened to people in their childhood, and then they saw how it correlated to them in their 40s, 50s, and 60s when they became adults, and how their traumatic experience in their youth still is impacting them in their adult life, So in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, what they found out was that these individuals who had this traumatic experience way back then are now dealing with higher levels of blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, bone marrow disease, all types of physical diseases based on having traumatic experiences in your past. It's not saying that you're guaranteed to have them. It's saying you're more likely based on those things happening in your past. Now, that's just a study that talked about the things that happen inside the home. This is not even what happened in your community, at school, So there's a lot when it comes to trauma that we don't account for. You talked about the spiritual trauma as well. You talked about, so there's a lot of trauma that I think where we stand as mental professionals, we really haven't even touched the surface as far as healing modalities for people who've gone through so many different layers of traumatic experiences. So you being here is such a testimony. Appreciate you sharing what you shared. Your strength is second to none. I know you wrote a book, but you got to write a second and a third book. Come on now.
Thank you, because you know what's so crazy, and I'm glad we work together doing this podcast together, because I have a second book that's being edited right now, and I'm talking about surviving trauma. How I'm putting the spiritual part and the physical part. I'm letting them know that you need both, because even though I was physically delivered and spiritually delivered from all those other things, I needed to work on the physical part and the mental part.
Right.
Because I still had trigger points. I still didn't want to be loved. I still had things that I had to work on, how I had to control and how I had to treat it from that aspect. And they don't really talk about that in the church, but they work hand on hand. You have to have both of them together, and people don't understand that.
Right. Otherwise, what happens is that it manifests, it overlaps, basically. We think we have healing in one area, right? What mental health is. And so sometimes people can't see it because they think mental health is mental illness is an invisible disease. They think you can't see it because it's not like a cold. They can't see the symptoms physically affect your body, but they can. You can really see the difference because what happens to you in your brain. Well, let me go back for a second. Mental health is our thoughts. Our thoughts then how they align with our emotions, which is the second component. And then the third is our behavior or our physical manifestations of what's happening inside of us. The thought, the emotions, and then the physical body will reveal what's been happening internally. And so sometimes, when you hear people say, I don't look like what I've gone through, like what you said earlier, right? That's a testament to say that you've worked on what's in here. You've worked on what's in here so that what's outside, the way you show up in the world, sees you as something totally different. Can't even pinpoint some of those things that you said you've experienced because of which you focused on. You focused on your heart, you focused on your mind, you focused on your physical body, and you also focused on that spiritual betterment as well. And so that's what got you the result. And I'm glad that you're writing the second book. I can't wait for it to come out.
Yes, it's going to be out. It's being edited right now because that's so important because when I was going through the transition, I still used to snap. Like, I'm like, yo, I'm saved now. Like, because the rejection part, I realized that I had to learn my trigger points. And it all fall down from when I was a little child, that I wasn't nurtured correctly. I wasn't loved correctly. So I had to work on all that. So that's very important to put the mental and the spiritual part together. You can't be healed in one area because the other area, because some people really don't believe in therapy. And I'm like, what?
There you go.
You have to let it out. Like when you hold all that stuff in, you burst. I used to snap and blank out because I had all that anger built in that I was never able to release it out and feel free from it. It was still it was like baggage that I was carrying around. The rejection, the anger, the abuse. You understand? I didn't trust people. Even though I didn't trust people because I felt like you're gonna do something to me because I feel like everybody that loved me always hurted me. So I had trust issues. And I was attracted. I had a trauma bond. I was attracted to other people that had that same type of hurt and pain. When, say for instance, I always use this scenario. Like, say for instance, a dog. Imagine a dog that's always being abused. Yeah. That somebody's always hitting it. So every time the dog comes around, it's ready to
hide itself. Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine you trying to rub me and touch. I'm still gonna be jumping, until you have to, So I needed to be healed on both. That's the same way. If I'm used to always being hurt, I'm not immune to love. Until God, Jesus Christ, had to show me love. So he had to put that spiritual love in me and also the mental part and also the spiritual part. So that's why it's important that I'm writing this, that I wrote it, and I'm going to have a journal with it, along with it, so they can also journalize, because that is a therapeutical tool that you can use. Besides talking, you can write. And when I was writing my book, I didn't even realize I went through all that. It's like God was bringing everything to my remembrance. It felt like I think I had blocked it out, and I was like, "Whoa,
yeah,
I can't believe it!" Like I was like, if you wasn't here and I had these pictures, nobody wouldn't believe me, right?
Sometimes that's good. Sometimes what we don't remember is actually good for us. Sometimes we think it's bad, but listen, sometimes disassociation is what it's called when you detach from a specific mind frame. Sometimes we need that. Sometimes we carry so much in our conscious and our subconscious that it weighs us down so heavy that we don't even know what's stopping us, what's blocking us. And so if it's not, if it was in your subconscious, sometimes it's just good to leave it there. If you go there, it's always good to go there with somebody you can trust, a professional and so forth, to help you manage those emotions and those thoughts when they come up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because what I was doing was I was self-sabotaging a lot of things that God had for me because I wasn't healed. I self-sabotaged relationship. I felt like before you reject me, I'm going to run. I had that running spirit, it looked like it's getting too hot up in whatever area I was in. I was like, you know what, something may happen. And I would leave before time. Sometimes God will have you somewhere for a season and he have you there for a reason to go through the process. And I used to self-sabotage so many things. And that's when I realized, hey, why? I started looking at the pattern, this is a pattern. I need to really get healed from the mental part as well.
Yeah. How did you start to recognize your triggers and then start to deal with them?
Because I realized, like, we give you an example, and that's okay, because if my sisters didn't listen to this, because they do listen, if they do, well, like, because their father treated me different as a child, it made all them feel like they was always better than me. So it was like a competition stuff. And they used to do things that they didn't know they was doing because it was a learned pattern from since a child. And when they used to always invite me, because like, even though I'm the life of the party, y'all. Like, everybody want to be around me, my kids, like, people just love me. I'm like, okay, God, I see why you gave me this personality. Like, I don't have any problem having friends. I have, like, people, like, I always get invited to certain stuff, even as a child, like, So I remember that it was certain times they wanted to invite me to come to, like, family gatherings. And I was like, I don't want to go. And then when my daughter was like, Mom, please, I want to go around my family. I'm like, okay, and I wanted to go see my nieces and my nephews as well. I'll get there and I just start feeling angry and mad. I was to get triggered for no reason.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is wrong with me? And I was like, something has to be wrong. I probably need to go to a therapist. And then I used to, like, get nervous and shake. Like, I had a lot of, like, things that used to happen to me, like panic attacks. I'm like, what is going on? It's because of my trauma that I experienced when I was a child. And then I read a book with Oprah and a therapist saying what happened to you.
See, we talked about that. We talked about that.
Wow. I said, that is crazy, because you can be in certain environments that get triggered. And I like the part when Oprah, like, and I related to that book so well. I was like, that's me. And I remember, like, I almost got married and I self-sabotaged that relationship.
Wow.
Because I felt like I just self-sabotaged it. And I was self-sabotaging a lot of different things because I wasn't completely healed. I still had residue of things that I needed to work on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that book that you was referring to is called "What Happened to You" by Dr. Bruce Perry, who's a neuroscientist, and Oprah Winfrey. Now, that book that you're referring to is brilliant because just the name of it kind of allows you to take off some of the shame, some of the guilt when people ask you the question, "What's wrong with you?" rather than what happened to you. And I promise you, it made me approach the way I see my clients and the way I saw myself differently, because for a very long time, I would look in the mirror and judge myself, believing that I didn't deserve happiness, just like you, believing that good things couldn't come to a person that did so many bad things, were involved in such a horrible origin story. So I was like, has to be me. I'm the person that's keep ruining these relationships that can't get it right. When in essence, what you have to do is pull back the lens and look at the bigger picture and see what a lot of us have gone through to show up in this world the way we do. Most people, and I have to say this because sometimes we label ourselves in this category as being bad or throwaways. Most people are good people. They've just gone through certain things that allow them to show up in their present moment as people who are dysfunctional in their reality, meaning there's something that's allowing them not to want to be there the way they are being there, meaning how you used to represent yourself wasn't the way you wanted to represent yourself intrinsically deep inside with who you are. That person is revealed to us now. Who was revealed to us back then was the resemblance, was the remnants of all of your traumatic experiences. And so even that person had value because God still provided a way for you to be here. So when we look at those individuals still in the thick of it, we don't ask what's wrong with you. We have to ask what happened to you, to outline their historical trauma from childhood, teenage years, and even into adult life. There's still traumatic experiences happening to allow us to show up in these scenarios, like what happened to you versus what's wrong with you.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Such a wonderful book that makes everything make sense. Besides the Bible, that is a great book.
Besides the Bible, yeah. And your book, that is. And your book.
Yes.
Yeah, my book, From the Streets to the Pulpit, Walking in Purpose, it outlines everything that I went through from a child, because mind you, I didn't mention my mom tried to abort me. That's my first testimony.
Wow.
She tried to abort me, and she tried so many different ways and so many attempts. Result of that, I came out a premature baby. In and out of hospital. I came out, I think, 6 months in and out of hospital for the first year. I almost didn't make it. That's my first testimony. So I was rejected from the womb.
Wow.
And I wasn't held. Imagine you, when you were a premature baby, they put you in an anchor bag that for whatever. So I wasn't used to being hugged and loved. So when I was in my first relationship with my kid's father was together for a long time. I remember as a young adult that he used to always want to hug and love me, and I used to put some off me because I wasn't used to that. And I remember he'd be like, "You didn't want to push me away. You didn't want me to. You never wanted me to hug me." It felt weird to me. I remember me taking his hands off me like, "Ew." It felt unnormal to me because I never got that as a child.
Wow.
But now I can love. That was like in my early, and it didn't feel good to me. It felt like icky, like yuck, move. Like I wasn't used to that.
When you first came to being able to accept love, how did that come? Was there like this moment when you were just like, wow, this happened and I was able to accept it? I didn't push it away.
When I was first in love, I felt that it was like butterflies. But again, he understood me and he understood the type of person I was. He knew I was a lovable person and he understood that I had trauma when I was growing up. But how God did it, how he made me embrace love and embrace hugs. He planted me into this church that's all they did. And it was like a diverse church. And I'm glad that was the first church I ever went to, because if I would have went to a different church, I don't think I would have came back. Like it was just a loving church and I served there. That's how I found my purpose. God, it's an interesting story, guys. That's how God was ordering my stuff. I didn't sign up to nothing. He placed me somewhere and I was laughing. And I was like, how did I get here? And I started serving there and he was using my gifts and my talents. But when I first started serving, he used me as a welcome person. So I was always hugging people and they was always hugging me. So that's how it started for me, giving hugs and receiving hugs. And I used to hug my kids. Them the only people that I ever poured love into like that was my kids. And I was like, God got a sense of humor because look where he placed me at. He couldn't have placed me anywhere else because some places I'm not, I love God. But some church buildings, some people are very mean and look at you weird and make you uncomfortable. But he had to place me at that church where everybody was so nice. Hey, always smiling, like being so loving and stuff like that. And that's where the love of God, reading the word, the people that I was around, and me pouring out love to them and they pouring love back into me.
Look at God. I mean, it really has to just build your faith hearing your story. Like it just has to. I just don't understand if someone just don't believe in that encounter with Christ. It's just amazing. I mean, it's amazing to hear your story and your transformation. I love it. My gosh, I wish we just had like so much more time to keep going on. Like Matt, you have more questions?
I mean, I could go all day because this is another person that's just like, her story is so remarkable. I think these stories should just have so much more time. And I'm just curious to know more because there's so many layers to the story that I'd love to spend some more time. But I'm sure she'll have an opportunity to come back on and we're going to hear some great things from her in the future.
Yeah. Awesome. Like we can, and what I like it is that God is sequence, like it's in sequence, like the way he does my life. And it's like, and I know I'm going to have to write a part 2 because a lot of people like, we waiting for the part 2 book because when I wrote my book, I wasn't speaking yet. Wow. I led to the journey of when God told me I was going to be speaking. And I said, God, if this is your will, I'm not reaching out to no one. They're going to reach out to me. So I haven't wrote the journey of how I started speaking and what I went through and everything. I just wrote, hey, he told me this is what I'm going to be doing. He gave me a lot of confirmation. I was like, okay, I'm going to write it. And okay, God. So when I posted the link online, I said, ready or not, here I come. Obedience is better than sacrifice. And I had people from UK, other countries that was reading the book, that was interviewing me. I was like, God got a sense of human. It got so overwhelmed. I was like, Lord, it's like I was getting booked back to back or whatever. And they were like, then it slowed down a little bit when I got this new position. It slowed down for like a year. But from 2020, it was
back to back.
And I'm still like learning and still, it's a daily process. I had a lot of fear. It's like now you can kind of sense the boldness a little, like it's coming out. But at first, I used to cry. I used to cry while I was speaking, but the Holy Spirit will take over and he'll do his thing. And I'll look at it like, thank God for stepping in because some stories are still like, it's still heartbreaking, but I have like,
Good. You're still pushing through, like you
still pushing through. It's not for me, it's for everybody else that needs it.
Right. So both of you are on the mission to help overcome childhood trauma, abuse, rejection, these things that really hurt us down to the core, mentally, emotionally, physically. So what strategies do y'all have that we can tell the listeners, in one, helping them to be introspective, to get down in there and just say, deal with what happened to me, right? First. And then an effective way that facilitates the healing and the transformation. What advice or techniques would you guys, offer?
You can start, Matt.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would say to anybody, you have to know this. Your story has value, right? Your story has value. Exactly where and what you've gone through has value, meaning it allowed you to be where you are right now. Sometimes we look back and we only see the pain, but you have to look back and see that person went through something. And you have to look at that person and say, wow, what capacity did that person have to be able to manage, and survive, and actually make it over some of those obstacles that they went through. That's value. That's currency that you can now share as a testimony to somebody, like the young lady said about where she was versus where she is right now. And if God can do it for her, God can do it for anybody. So your story has value. Don't look back at it and feel ashamed. Don't look back at it and feel small. Look back at it and see what distance you traveled to be where you are right now, because right back then you had value, and where you are right now, you still have value.
Absolutely. So good. I would say this. I think you have to get healed from the physical part and the mental part. And what I think is, because we went through all that, I think the enemy was trying to rob us of our identity. He didn't want us to know who we are and who we are going to be. So the healing process, to me, I feel like you have to get professional help. Don't just feel like, hey, I can do this alone. You cannot. Sometimes depression, things of what you went through, like your trigger points, you need to get professional help, like going through a therapist, go help, so they can help you manage and treat those trigger points, because you may not know you have trigger points. You may not know. Just pay attention to every time you get angry. Just pay attention to every time that you don't want to go somewhere. Just pay attention to the people where you feel a certain type of way. And you also have to heal it from the spiritual part. You need Jesus to heal you, because he's going to be the one that poured the love into you. You have to close some doors. You have to believe that he's your savior, that he can help you. You got to go through the process. And it's a daily process. It's not going to happen overnight. I got saved 10 years ago, and I'm still being healed from everything that I've went through.
Wow. That's amazing. I appreciate you sharing all that you've shared. I'm sure it was such an amazing time spent with you. I appreciate this story, and I think this story is going to create so much more traction for other people, younger women and men who have gone through these experiences. I'm talking about, you're talking about kidnapping, you're talking about gunshots, you're talking about all these things that happen that you witness, and now here you are on the other side of it, healthy, thriving, and doing great things as far as writing books, excelling in your career. So thank you for coming on the podcast, sharing your thoughts, and where can people find you? Where can people find you? Your books?
My name, Instagram, Facebook. You can. I have a website. My name, Kerland Toussaint. It's the same name from all platforms: Facebook, Instagram.
I already found you on IG.
Okay, you did. Okay,
like, yep. Let me find her right now.
I'm gonna be back sharing videos and stuff, because I took a break from a year. But starting next week, I'm gonna be doing little clips and videos, because I was supposed to do that since last year. I started. If you look down, and then I stopped. But I'm gonna start back doing that and start doing back interviews and different things and speaking. And I want to have you guys come to the conference, and and Matt, I have to work with you as well.
Let me know.
I need someone that hit that aspect of it as well, that talks about the mental health aspect.
I got you. You know what I'm saying? We share that history of that Haitian culture. And so there's a lot of things that I understand very fluidly, as you spoke. And of course, being from South Florida, growing up in South Florida, I listen, those stories are are super. Like you were talking about addresses. You talking about places. I'm like, oh, I know that area. I know the area right there. So,
it look like a tourist attraction now. Like this
I know. Listen, I remember. You know, so thank you so much, and we'll definitely be working together. That's why I already had to find you on IG and message you. And so,
thank you for having me, Rock. It was a great. You interview me.
Thank you for the story, Kerland. Thank you guys for just being so transparent and sharing. Like, you know, it's something when people come on, you know, sometimes it takes a moment to kind of get, you know, a little warmed up and stuff. But when the conversation gets going, every like interview always leads back to God, you know, Christ, you know, how he has just like lifted us up out of the situation, how his word is just so strong and so powerful. You know, it's a testament to me to hear these stories. Like, I'm going through it, like probably just the listener as well, because I'm like, my gosh, thank you so much. Because it's that transparency we need. And like you said, Kerland, when it's like, I'm just being me. I'm just being me out here to speak and tell it. Like, yeah, that's just what we need. That just being you.
Yeah, sometimes
you're going to reach people that maybe some like that pastor or someone can't reach, and you reach them. You know, everybody is in the work of Jesus to there and get the fish.
Because sometimes I remember one time they put me on a platform with different politicians with all these titles, and I was like, "What in the world?" Now they know I speak broken slang and all this stuff. But when I got on there, did my thing, I took over. The Holy Spirit was like, "Whoop!" Everybody was like, "Yeah, her." I was like, "You said I was just being myself. I didn't have to come on like, hey, I'm doctor this and such and such, and hey, I'm running for this and that. I was just telling whatever story God let me tell." And just be me. At first, I was a little uncomfortable. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think I would have worked out. But I was like, you know what, God, I'm just gonna go with the flow. And when I started sharing my testimony, they started sharing their testimony.
That's what's up.
That's awesome. Thank y'all so much for just, you know, coming on the show. Obviously, I'd love to have you back to just get more, especially when you have that book ready. Please come back so we can get into more of that. You know, people need to hear the healing and know what to do. Like, that's a big deal in knowing what to do, because there's so much, you know, sometimes we just need to like to get to the therapist. How are we going to even just decide that, look, I need to see somebody?
And that's what it's so crazy, because I just finished it a couple of months ago and I'm still like editing, working on it and stuff. I'm going to like put the cover and then take it out because it have like book signing events and stuff like that, because people love coming to my events and the book signing events that I'll be having, because I don't make it boring. I have me like a good Christian DJ. It's a whole vibe. You won't even think it's a Christian thing. Everybody like, you know, because, you know, people that's not even saved come. Because, you know, to them, I'm the closest thing to a pastor to them, I guess. So they come out. And in that book, I give the resources of where to get help and what's the difference between certain therapists and, you know, to pray for resources, phone numbers. Like, you really need that, because it's not about just that spiritual healing. It's deeper than that. And that's why I feel like it was so important, because my first book, I wrote about the spiritual deliverance. I have a chapter that said the deliverance process. When I put down how I was being tormented at night by them demons and them fallen angels that my family that had opened the doors to, and how traumatizing that was. But I was like, you know what? I need to put the mental and the spiritual part together and talk about, let's heal trauma. We survived it. Like, you get it like a survival thing, that this is not just only for believers. Anybody that's going through some traumatic experience, you know, because sometimes when they look at the book, even though it did reach a lot of non-believers because the title and the way that, but the healing journey, a lot of people are struggling behind closed door, are struggling and looking good with makeup, dressing down, but the inside, they're hurting with depression. They're hurting. You are mental, you know, that part is very important. People leave that part out. They walk hand in hand. They work together.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, totally. Well, you guys, I mean, I would like to come back, like, and really get into that, like, when you talking about those demons and stuff, because I don't think we really get how they start up, you know, and giving them access and letting them in.
This is going to be very important, because people don't know, because right now, the new age, they don't know how they open. The doors could be, let me give you an example, right?
Okay.
I jumped on a trip to Tri-Rail one time, right? Let me tell you something. When I got, it was a point of time that people were just walking up to me to try to read me, like, hey, I want to read you. Hey, this lady dropped the crystal down in front of me, boom, on the floor. She said, pick it up. I said, I ain't picking it up because I got a strong discernment. I knew right when I picked it up, she'd have been like, I see this. And when in the mall, they walk up to me in public.
Wow.
They'll come up to you and be like, hey, I want to pray for you. Be like, hey, I see something. Oh, you don't see nothing. I'm like, I'm like, don't touch me. I rebuke that. They will be very aggressive.
Wow.
And sometimes they'll get people at their more vulnerability part. Like, say, for instance, you just broke up. Somebody left you for somebody else. They'll be like, hey, I can get your husband back. People be inboxing and DMing people like, hey, I'm a Christian. And they do that to me. So I can imagine the non-believers. The new age thing that because they're saying is your ancestors. It's not witchcraft. So people are really being deceived. So we really need to talk about that. So you get ready, baby.
I love it.
Because that's one of my strong points. That's my strong point in that. Yes.
No, I want to talk about it.
They don't call themselves witches and stuff like that. It's some deep stuff out here that the enemy is really, really, and some of them don't even know what they're doing. They don't even realize what they're doing because they're giving something access to their body, so they don't remember what happened.
Wow.
This is deep. So, yeah, it's going to be deep. I'll do my research and be ready. Like, we're going to go into some stuff for that.
Yay! I'm excited. I really like that stuff. I really like talking about that spirit realm because we don't see it. Very few of us really even think about it, So when hearing stories like this, because we need to know this enemy. They don't talk about it enough so we can notice.
They're scared. You know what it is? They're scared of warfare. There is a lot of warfare that come with it. So when we do this, we got to fact. It's a lot of warfare because we're going to be exposing secrets and stuff that people are scared to talk about. It's not only they're scared to talk about it, they don't have the knowledge in it to talk about it. I went through that background and I know it's not just Haitian voodoo and going to like a witch doctor. It's all over the place. I have people at work, they have on the red bracelets. They be like, oh, that's my spiritualist. They don't call them, it's a lot of different names.
Okay.
And they don't think it's nothing wrong with it. They be like, hey, you just need to go get a spiritual bath. And they just don't know. You're getting a spiritual bath. You're opening doors. They be like, oh, you just need a cleansing. It's a lot of words to it. You just need a cleansing.
Wow. And I was going to ask you, like in the Haitian community, is it different than say, for instance, if I'm just I'm just in LA walking, down, I'm at the mall or something. It's got to be somewhat the same thing. It just comes at you different. So you don't really
I know the people that came up to me at the Tri-Rock section of the mall, there wasn't Haitians. One was a gypsy and one was a Spanish girl, Santeria. They just have different names. I know a lot of the names.
Thank you.
They don't come at you they don't be like, hey, they make it be like crystals. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's just different names and different cultures and races and stuff like that. They don't call it.
That's what people need to know, how to recognize it across the board. Because when we think about witchcraft or something, I think we give it a certain look. And it's not whatever look that is, it's across the board. It comes a whole lot of different ways, but pretty much adding up to be the same thing.
Not to change the topic, let me just give you a small example that I know.
Okay.
Even though right now, Diddy is a hot topic going on right now, right?
Yes.
If you look on his back, that big old tattoo he got on his back is one of the demons. One of them is called Isali Donta. That's one of the spirits that people worship. They don't know. You can Google, look at his tattoo. When we get off here, Google the name, and it's going to tell you a lot of backgrounds of what they want. Sometimes people, like I mentioned, sometimes they do stuff. They don't even know they're doing it. It's sometimes something is possessing your body. You don't get this stuff assets. The Americans call it Illuminati. So it's different names. It's different names. It's different names. You see? It's some deep stuff, some deep stuff. People really don't know. They open a door to it. And I know artists that want to rap, that wants to get into that. Sometimes they really call the secret thing. You get it, be like, hey, we're going to give you everything you want. You don't think you're selling your soul. You don't think you're asking the demons and devil for favor, but actually it sounds good because right now you want to be signed. Right now you want to be, I saw a video about a doctor. He was another doctor came and hey, you want more customers? You want to make a lot of money? We're doing a party tomorrow night. It's a secret party. all you have to do is give one of your kids. The same night, he said, that's it. The same night, his daughter started having nightmares. He had to get out of that country in Europe. That stuff is deeper than deep. Deeper than deep. This is a little bit I'm just talking about.
Oh.
Wow.
I can't wait to unveil it all. It sounds like it's going to be like some page turners, Like
oh my gosh, it's for sure going to be page turner. We got to come back and talk about this. We want to know. I want to know what's up. All right. Thank you, Kerland. Thank you, Matt, for just coming and sharing. Thank you so much.
You guys are giving me the best gift ever, being here with two intelligent women, really uplifting the community. I really appreciate this time. I'm in a household dominated by women, right? I have, my wife, and then I have 5 daughters. And so, and so now,
boys?
Yeah, I have one boy. I have the one boy. The boy is here. He just turned 2 yesterday. So happy birthday to Ayo.
Oh, okay, happy birthday. What's their ages?
Well, big sister's 12. Then we had triplets. The triplets are 11.
Wow.
Well, they'll be 11 in July.
Triplets.
The triplets, and then had a baby boy, and then we have a baby girl to keep the baby boy company. So he's younger. He's way younger than them. Well, you know how that is. Sometimes you have that gap in between, and then you don't want to keep them down there by themselves. So
by himself.
We had them some company. So 6 altogether. But I just wanted to say that I appreciate this time, spending with 2 intelligent women doing some incredible things. And so always my pleasure. Thank you, Kerland, for coming on. Thank you, Raquel, for having me again. Yeah.
Until the next time, thank you all so much for joining the show. Thank you, Kerland and Matt, for just giving us gems, okay? Thank you for sharing your story and being so transparent. Next week here on PlanetRoq, come and check us out. Listen on envision-radio.com. Real people, real talks, goodness, okay? So y'all look forward to listening to us next week. See you then.